said it in some of our posts before, not all business is between easy and hard decisions. Sometimes it's between hard and harder decisions. So today's video, we want to talk through 5 thoughts, 5 ways of thinking about making difficult decisions in business. I'm Arthur Petropoulos, managing partner here at Hillview Partners. We're a middle market, lower middle market, investment banking, M&A, capital advisory firm, helping companies generating $1 million to $10 million in EBITDA, sell their businesses, and secure capital. So, as will inevitably be the case in growing a business, in building a business, in preparing to sell a business, in undertaking the exercise of selling a business, there's always going to be difficult decisions. And what we've seen from the clients that we've worked with and what we try to implement in our own business is there are certain mantras or tenets or motifs that remind us that decisions in business are difficult. They need to be made. However, over a long enough period of time, making these difficult decisions the right way is like flexing a muscle. You get better at doing it every iteration, and we wanted to share some of our experiences and takeaways from seeing hundreds of transactions and being involved with hundreds of businesses over these years. So the first of these is that the choice is not always between bad and good. Sometimes we think everything is black and white. Do you want to be poor or do you want to be rich? Do you want to starve or do you want to be full? But in reality, some of the hardest decisions you make in business are between good and excellent. Will you give up the good thing that is happening to find the elite thing? Will you stop marketing in this way such that you can reallocate the bandwidth to something that could be even better, right? And so giving up something, taking a step back to take a step forward is a very difficult decision in business. And so when you're faced with that and you say, hey, you know what, this was working, why are we going to modify it? Why are we going to tweak it? You have to contemplate, are you trying to fix it if it ain't broken, or are you giving up the good to go for the great? And sometimes those can look very similar, but a true tenet of decision making is if you truly feel that elite is capable, however it necessitates sacrificing good, sometimes that's a decision that must be made. Number 2, and kind of the counterpoint to this to some extent, is measure twice, cut once. And so spend a lot of time thinking about decisions. Make the decisions thoughtful. Don't make them flippantly. Now, number 3 that we get to will indicate what happens when you've already decided what you're going to do, but continue to iterate, continue to analyze. And so we always say there's an 80% certainty interval in business, and it doesn't really get better beyond that in the sense that iterations of thought will ultimately get you at best to an 80 to 90% certainty interval, or confidence of how absolutely certain you are that a certain outcome will happen based on your decisions. And once you get to that point, you make a decision. But measure twice, cut once. Don't get to 10% certainty and just say, hey, forget it, let's give it a whirl. Hope is not a strategy, and therefore a lot of thought and preparation and thinking are involved. Now, that being said, number 3 is minimize the time between decision making and action. So you spend a lot of time thinking about something, iterating. You get to 90% certainty, you say, okay, we are going to do X. Well, from the time you decide to do X to the time you actually start acting on X, a good indication of a successful business, of successful business leadership, is how short is that time, right? If you're going to do it, you said you're going to do it, you've made the decision, you're not going back, but then you take a long time to actually implement it, to actually put it into effect, to actually see if you're right, that is procrastination. And so if you can make the decision, if you can implement it quickly, what does that allow you to do? Gather data and feedback from that decision making quickly, and then contemplate the next decision, right? Most good things in business do not come from just brilliant, Benjamin Franklin being struck by electric. I don't know what analogies we're necessarily conflating there, but most things don't just fall out of a tree with a brilliant idea. They come from painful glass chewing and iterations. So you think, you make a decision, you act on the decision, you get feedback, you think, you make the next decision, so on and so forth. So you don't necessarily want to compact the time in which you're thinking and start making dumber decisions, but what you want to do is compact the time between making the decision and acting. The quicker you can do that, and the quicker you can then extract or synthesize feedback, the faster you can make decisions, and the faster you can therefore improve. Next, number 4, is you can't change the past, but you can change the future. Someone told me once that brilliant people learn when someone else gets punched in the face, smart people learn when they get punched in the face, and dumb people just keep getting punched in the face. Now, I won't espouse to be brilliant, and you can see from the crooked nose, I've been punched in the face plenty of times. But that being said, we're not dumb. We learn our lessons, we take our beatings, and we move on. And that's something that you need to think about in business, is that you cannot change the past, but again, if you continue to repeat it, that 40 years walking in the circle in the desert, that's not good. And so every time something negative happens in a business, it's a good opportunity to learn from whatever it is that just took place in order to avoid the same deficiencies that caused it in the first place. And not only do you want to look at the losses, but look at the wins too. It's like in basketball in high school, you lost a game by 2, you'd think about it for a week. If you won the game by 2, you wouldn't think about it at all. You'd say, well, we won, who cares? But in reality, it's a couple shots difference, and so you may as well analyze that 2-point win the same way as a 2-point loss. And so again, no one gets through this business or any business without getting punched in the face plenty of times. Just make sure it's for something new every time, or that there's a lot of learning that comes along with it. Number 5 is nobody bats 1,000. I always used to say in baseball, if you bat 300, if you get a hit 3 out of every 10 times, you're probably in line for the Hall of Fame. And so in business, I do think you have to do a little bit better than that. But the reality is you just need to win more, again, magnitude of all decisions kind of held equal, than you lose. You need to be a little bit better than everyone else over a very long period of time, and compounding those abilities and compounding that difference. I've always said to people, if you raced Usain Bolt, the first 3 inches of the race, you're going to look exactly the same. The next 4 feet, maybe you're a little bit behind. By the time you get to 20 feet, 30 feet, meters, you're ultimately going to lose by a lot. And so it's the same thing in trying to win in business. You're not going to blow everybody out of the gates day one. However, if you compound, if you win just a little bit more than you lose, if you bat just a little bit better than everybody else, you're going to win over time. And so that consistency oftentimes trumps the intensity. And so that's the thought for today. Business comes with difficult decisions. 5 things we've seen from our experience, 5 motifs, tenets of those that have been very successful in making decisions. We'll run through them again right now. The first is that the choice is not always between good and bad. Sometimes it's between good and better. Sometimes it's between bad and worse. But they're decisions that need to be made nonetheless. Second, measure twice, cut once. Spend time thinking, make thoughtful decisions. However, stop iterating once you're not going to get any more certain about the potential outcomes. To that point, number 3, minimize the time between the decision making and the actual action to take place. This maximizes the iterations. This maximizes the learning velocity. Number 4, you can't change the past, but you can change the future. Don't make the same mistakes over and over again. And analyze the bad outcomes to see what mistakes contributed to them. Analyze the good outcomes to see what mistakes made them less good than they possibly could have been. And number 5, nobody bats 1,000. Win more than you lose, but sometimes the greatest victory you get in any day is just being able to wake up the next day and get another at bat. So make no fatal mistakes. Win more than you lose. Iterate. And so that's the thought for today. Hope the week continues to go well for everyone. Keep pushing forward. God bless. We'll see everyone next time.